All right, everybody, buckle up. This one's going to be a lot of information to digest here, but hopefully everyone will understand what is actually going on in these kinds of relationships with these kinds of people. Now, with that being said, the topic for today is how the Jezebel wants to attract you into sexual perversion. And this is also going to be a topic where we discuss narcissism and borderline personality disorder. Now, we're going to talk specifically about what these kinds of people want from you and what the Jezebel is. Now, the Jezebel is essentially a spirit, and I genuinely believe that people with narcissism or people with borderline personality disorder, what I genuinely think this is a demonic possession of the Jezebel spirit. The borderline personality disorder is more the kind of person that is not as possessed by the Jezebel spirit. You know, it's kind of a half in, half out kind of a thing. Whereas the narcissist, the full-on female narcissist, even males can be possessed by the Jezebel spirit. But what this Jezebel spirit wants out of you is something from you, not for you. This is something that is going to be challenging to understand if you are experiencing this for the first time. And a lot of the times, if you are experiencing this for the first time, you may not even understand what exactly is happening. You may be confused. You may be feeling as though all of a sudden around this person you feel really elevated and you feel excited and you feel all of these exciting emotions and this lustful emotion, but yet at the same time you feel as though you're being dragged further away from God. You're being just led astray. But that's exactly what they're here to do. They're trying to remove you from what you're here to do. And it's important to note that most women, even if they're not narcissists, are going to be, or possessed by the Jezebel spirit, they're going to be very indirect on how they talk to you and how they approach you. And they're going to be making sure that you don't understand what their game plan is. Because if you don't understand their game plan, then you're going to be easily seduced, just like every other guy that they seduce. Because oftentimes, the Jezebel spirit can be very, very beautiful as a person on the outside. I've had my fair share of experiences with this over the past year and a half on semen retention specifically. And it's amazing the power of semen retention and how you can attract all different kinds of energy. And I'm sure all of the women that are celibate watching this video, I am positive that you are attracting all different kinds of energies of men as well, because you're being pure, and pureness attracts all different kinds of energy. It doesn't really matter. Like people say you are what you attract, and I think that that's true to an extent, but I don't think that's necessarily always the case. Sometimes your purity is just going to be something that people want to, they see your purity and then they want to make you feel valueless. They see that you value yourself and they think, oh, well, how can I make this person feel like they're not, the value that they actually are? And this happens in a lot of different ways. But these women that are possessed by the Jezebel spirit are experts at retrieving information and using that information as ways to manipulate you down the line. Sometimes, in order for me to test the spirit, because in the Bible it says to test the spirit of people to see whether or not they are of God. Sometimes, in order to test the spirit, I'll give this person information that most anyone that has watched my YouTube videos has known. Like anything I put on YouTube here is something that I'm not afraid of other people knowing. Like I don't, obviously there's details and such that I don't want to go into, but for the most part, if I own, like, this is something I realized about 2.5 years ago, is if I own everything that I am, nobody can say anything about what's going on in my life. So if I just own it, you can't hurt me. You can't manipulate me. Now, will you, even as a godly man, be tempted to be led by these manipulative Jezebel spirits to give you like for you to give them information because they know how to sexually seduce you? You know, that one of their abilities, demonic abilities, is to use influence and control and domination of the man through sexual seduction. And anybody that's been around a Jezebel knows that they know how to subtract the information that you give them through sexual seduction, but they don't necessarily like give back anything else. They just take a lot of it. And some of them are going to want to latch onto your energy in a really bad way. Now, for example, borderline personality disorder women that I've dealt with in the past. It's wild to think back and to, in retrospect, think about all the things that could have been. But they're just so flighty and so hit or miss with how they're going to behave. You know, it is literally like 1 minute they'll be behaving good. They'll show certain qualities that you've asked them to show, and they're showing it, and you're thinking, wow, okay, great. Like, this is fantastic. And then they just go ahead and completely flip the script, and they start flirting with other guys in front of you, or they start trying to emasculate you in front of your friends or anything like that. Or it's just these weird things that happen where you're thinking to yourself, like, what the hell? What the hell? And it's not a shit test. You know, this is not a shit test from a woman. This is something wrong. Like, there's something wrong with this woman. And you will not have any idea on how damaging these kinds of relationships are until you're completely out of the relationship. And it took me, with one of these women that I dealt with, it was a married woman, and we never did anything intimate together physically, but emotionally there was an affair of sorts. And again, never did anything physically, and I didn't even know she had a family until like 2 months into talking. About a month and a half, 2 months. And finally, after all of that information and all of that time, when I realized what was actually going on, it was almost like she was setting up her life to just switch over to me as the guy. Like, switch over to me as the main man. And she was older than me. She was about 5 years older than me at the time. Well, I guess she still is, but she's 5 years older than me, and she had a very unique way of like, obviously she had more experience because she was married and she had a family, so there was obviously some kind of experience that she had over me at the time. And I was in a place where I was not simping, that's for sure. I wasn't simping at this point, but I was more so stepping into the truth with Jesus for the first time, and really trying to find and really trying to figure out how to operate in this new frame of truth and this new frame of mind. And I didn't know how to break attachments. I didn't know how to break what you could call soul ties. Right? Because in the Bible, this is talked about, but not explicitly. But a soul tie, specifically with anybody with a borderline personality disorder or a narcissistic personality disorder or a Jezebel spirit possession, your life will be a living hell. your life will absolutely be a living hell. And for this woman that I was dealing with, for even just the 2 months or so that we were talking, it took me like a year to heal from everything. And in those 2 months, I learned almost everything I need to learn about manipulation, about how psychotic and how unfaithful women can really be. Because this was a Christian woman, right? She was Christian. And she was trying to teach me about the Bible, even though I was reading the Bible and I knew stuff at the time. That's a red flag, just so you know, ladies and gentlemen. If and this is for the ladies out there, if you try to teach your man, now there's nothing wrong with like sharing a verse and, asking what he thinks about it. But if you're a woman out there and you try to show your man that you know more than him about the Bible, you got y'all got some issues, okay? You need to sort through some things because you're trying to take the authority of the man in the relationship. Now, if you're dealing with an ungodly man as a woman and you're trying to talk about the Bible and he's not having it, well, that's a different story, okay? Your teaching is falling on deaf ears, and at that point, you should probably just exit the relationship. There's no need in sticking around. But it was wild to see how this woman latched on to my energy, and I didn't even realize it. Like, I didn't even know what was exactly happening. All I knew was I was trying to be more righteous in my activities, and I was actually trying to look for someone better, and she just was mature. That was what I really liked about her. It seemed like she was mature, that is. But she always, like, she had kept coming and going, and she was never really set, or she always wanted to, like, make sure that I was in her frame, and I always felt like I couldn't lead. Like, I wanted to lead, but I couldn't lead. But yet, every time she was leading, it was always kind of seductive in nature. Like, there was almost like it was like no conversation was very clear. And that's another red flag that you're dealing with a Jezebel spirit or a borderline personality or narcissistic person, because if the conversation isn't clear and there's like a word salad going on and you're walking away, getting this like high of attention, but you also feel kind of low, kind of like what we talked about earlier with just feeling away from God. That's another sign of you got to be careful. And right now, actually, there's a woman that is really trying to seduce me, really trying, and she's not giving up. But here's the thing. I know what her game plan is. I know what she's trying to do. I know what's actually going on. And that's what she hates, but she also likes it. She hates that she can't control me, but she also loves that she can't control me. So there's like this weird, and I do think she has some kind of form of bipolar personality disorder or borderline personality disorder. But, and I hope she gets the help she needs. I hope she gets the therapy she needs, because there's obviously some kind of form of rejection trauma. When I first started talking to her, of course, I was attracted to her. And of course, there were certain things that, we were aligned on, I thought. And then sometimes, like, because I like to play the slow game, especially right now at this time in my life, I'm not looking to get anything quickly. I am aware from my experience that it is most important for men to vet the women and to watch exactly what she does far more than anything she says. And so when her words and her behaviors were not lining up, I decided to move along, and I let her know that I was moving along. And that's when things started to amp up, and she started to get like unhealthily obsessed. But yet she would still like do these crazy behaviors. And I thought, well, I just have to consider this to be a life lesson that even the people that claim to be Christian, even the people that claim, and this is even going back to the woman that I dealt with that was that had a family. You know, this made me realize that not all women that are Christian, that are religious, quote unquote, are actually not necessarily good partners. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They do not have the Holy Spirit. They speak in words of confusion. And again, I understand that most of the time women are indirect. However, it is also the case that you should really know that sometimes women are not into you. They're just into your energy. And that's exactly the case that I found out with this woman, and with the woman that was that had the family that I didn't know about. In both of these cases, but this time I picked it up pretty quickly. I didn't have to wonder, right? I saw the first red flag and I was like, okay, noted. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you, God, for showing and revealing that. And bada bing, bada boom. But there's other stories that I have about the Jezebel. You know, there's been times within the last few months, I guess it was about a few months ago, there was a time at the gym where I saw this woman that I haven't really seen before. Very attractive, very revealing in her clothes as well, and she seemed like she knew every guy in the place. And she was going up and talking to every single guy, and I noticed that she did something similar with every single guy. Every single guy. And I've seen this before, but not this sophisticated. Like, this was a sophisticated Jezebel. Like, this was a high-ranking demonic entity as far as I'm concerned. And something that she did really well was purposely thirst trapping these men. Like, purposely thirst trapping and then leaving. And this is obviously a tactic that most hot women do, but she did it in such a way that left the guy almost drooling when she left. And it was astounding to watch. It was astounding to just listen to, because I don't listen to headphones or anything when I'm at the gym, and I'm usually just focused on myself. But when I like to keep my head on the swivel, though, I like to know my surroundings, and I like to just understand what's going on. But she was very sophisticated, and it was almost frightening in a way, because it just goes to show, it wasn't frightening like the way that she was acting. It was more frightening for the men. Like, so many men are falling victim to these Jezebels and walking away from like their sex magic and their thirst trapping, all to realize, because this is sex magic. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with this, but I mean this term, but sex magic is essentially where people use their sexual energy to control or manipulate the people around them. Now, of course, there's positive expressions of sexuality, and there's positives when it comes to what exactly like the sacredness of sex is. But anybody that teaches you how to control people based off of your sex, like magic, that's demonic. Altogether, that is demonic. And this was so crazy to me, because it was like this woman had the ability to influence men into giving her power. And that was what was so frightening, I think, is her ability to use her sexual appeal to influence men into just giving their power away, giving up their frame. And I understand, men, that it can be a temptation and a challenge. I understand that. And I've even had times where women like walk by me, whether it's at the grocery store or at the gym or whatever, and just their like they have this sexual energy about them, and it is like sex magic where they almost try to like draw out your life force and your semen. And that's like been the case with some of these women, is like I can feel them almost trying to draw out my strength. And I've never experienced this prior to semen retention though. Never experienced it to semen retention. But something else I want to talk about is just in regard to like how the Jezebel has almost taken over most households in our society today. Well, have you ever noticed how many men are the ones that are following the women around at the grocery stores? Like, just look around and who's leading the cart, right? Who has the cart and who's got the checklist and who's got, the finances or the credit card, the whatever, to pay up at the cash register or at the self checkout. Who's the one like leading all of this? And then you see the men and they're just like following and they're like, oh, it's almost like their heads are lost in the clouds. They're not even present. And then have you ever noticed how even at the gym, and this isn't like the only gym that I've seen this at, but it's like where these couples that go to the gym, where the woman has like the workout page that they're marking off as they go along, and like the guy is taking like training from the woman. And look, there's nothing wrong if you don't know how to do something at the gym and you like that, there's nothing wrong with that. If you just want to know how to do something, like there's machines that don't make sense. There really are. And so sometimes you have to ask for help, and sometimes there's just a woman around that actually knows how to work the machine, and so you just ask her. I don't like, that's not a big deal. But if you are relying on the woman in your relationship to lead you to a better like physical body and physique, like, bro, like that is the least manliest thing that I think I could ever think about as far as like in a relationship goes. If you don't know how to take care of your body as a man, yo, like that's on you, brother. That's on you. And so it's very important in all of these situations that men, you need to start making sure that you are staying your ground and standing true to your boundaries. You have to set boundaries as well. Set boundaries to begin with. And a lot of these consultations that I've had recently, people have asked me how to set boundaries. People don't, it's come to my attention that a lot of men don't even know how to set boundaries because they were never taught. And women were just taught how to say no. Like, they don't really know what a boundary is. They just know what they like and they don't like, because everything's so emotional most of the time. And men, and I'm speaking about like the modern women, not the traditional women, and then for the men that are actually trying to be righteous, we just were never taught how to set boundaries. And so you have to just express what is acceptable behavior from you or from the other person and what's not. And if they're not participating in the kind of behaviors that you'd like to see, or if they're intentionally crossing boundaries, you have to remove your attention and your presence altogether, or just completely ignore everything that's happening and not even give them the light of day. Don't even go near them. And a lot of these Jezebels and a lot of these women that have the Jezebel spirit or are narcissistic or that have borderline personality disorder, it's absolutely wild to see the kinds of behaviors that they are willing to, and the lengths that they're willing to go to just to get a reaction out of you. And a lot of the times that's all women really want in the end, in some way, shape, or form. They want some kind of extraction of value from you, specifically if you're a righteous and godly man. And even in the Bible, Elijah ran away from God's calling on him because the power of the Jezebel was so strong, and like the temptation was so strong, and just the hellhole that he was in was so strong. Even though God wanted him to stay, he couldn't stay, but he eventually was able to overcome those things. But this is just a sign, and we have to learn from these things. Do I want to necessarily confront these Jezebels and place all of these boundaries when they're disrespecting me? Not necessarily. I don't really like it. I don't like confrontation. I'm not a confrontational person, but I absolutely will set those boundaries and standards with the women that are crossing those boundaries and standards and are wasting my time. I do not like my time wasted. I do not like when people disrespect me openly or mock or anything of the sort. I don't like that kind of stuff. And my boundary for, again, I mentioned this in a video recently, but I did this with a different woman the other day, where I set this boundary where I said to her that I am not compatible with women in relationships or talking to multiple men simultaneously in a romantic manner. And I'm just not about that. I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting that so many women, specifically in relationships, that are trying to fight for the attention of other men. It's really not, it's really giving no pillar of truth or pillar of faith to the conception of marriage in legal terms nowadays. So one of the reasons why I'm not ever going to get married, as long as the laws are the way that they are currently. And this is why, as men, we must stand in the light of Jesus and take back our spiritual authority with the blood of Jesus washing over us. If we do not stand in the light of Jesus and take back this authority, spiritually speaking, because God, if you are a chosen one, if you are an ordained elect of God, you absolutely do have spiritual authority. And the only way that you're going to be able to get it taken away from you is if you give it away. People will try to copy you. Some of these Jezebels try to copy you. It's true. Some of them try to copy me when I'm out and about. A lot of the narcissists in my past tried to copy me. I had a female narcissist that, well, I'm not sure if she was narcissistic, but, well, if she was a narcissist, but she did have I do think she was borderline personality disorder. And she tried to copy me, and half of it was like admiration, but the other half was jealousy. And she really didn't like the way that I carried myself, that I had belief in myself. And as long as you know, like, this is another crazy thing about the Jezebel spirit, is that you can be doing everything right. Like, you know that you're sure of what you're doing. You know you're doing the right thing. You know you're operating in a certain way. You're operating in the right way. And yet they have this crazy ability to make it seem like you're the one that is to blame, quote unquote, for the problems in the relationship. And that is, I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. If you know that you're being a godly, righteous man, or you're being a godly, righteous woman, and you're dealing with someone that is operating from a narcissistic perspective, and they're trying to make you feel like you're not, I'm here to tell you that you need not doubt your position. Stay sure of yourself. Stay confident. Have humility, of course, because, and I'm not saying that you should display that to the narcissist, but have it internally. Know that you're God's, like, you are the vessel of God. You are not God himself, but you are a vessel of God. And keep yourself humble and disciplined, but ultimately what you want to recognize is that As long as you stand in the light of Christ, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and all your spiritual authority will be granted unto you because God is with you. And with that being said, peace be with you till next time.